In this video, we now should have everything we need to work on simplifying a ratio. So we're going to talk about that here. Okay, so let's say we have this example here, 6y squared minus 8y over 2y squared minus 12y. We want to see if we can simplify this as much as possible. Well, the goal with all of these problems that we're going to work on here is we want to try to do some kind of factoring with both the numerator and the denominator to see if we're able to cancel anything. Okay, so let's see how we can rewrite both the numerator and the denominator here. Well, if we look at the numerator, that's the number on the part of the ratio on top here. Okay, we're going to see if we can find a greatest common factor here. So here we have 6y squared minus 8y. So what do these two have in common? Well, we can divide out a 2y from each of these. So if we divide out a 2y, we'll have 2y times 3y minus 4. Okay, and that's because we pull a 2y out of the 8y and a 2y out of the 6y squared. So we have 2y times 3y minus 4. And then on the denominator here, we have 2y squared minus 12y. Once again, we can also pull a 2y out here. And if we pull a 2y out, we're going to be left with just y minus 6. Okay? So we have 3y minus 4 on top, and then y minus 6 on the bottom. But we have this 2y here and this 2y here. So we're actually able to cancel those. And we are left with 3y minus 4 over y minus 6. So this would be the simplified version of 6y squared minus 8y divided by 2y squared minus 12y. Okay? Okay, let's look at this one. It's somewhat similar. Here we have 5u squared minus 35u squared. Okay, so in the numerator here, we can go ahead and rewrite the numerator here as minus 30u squared. Okay, and then in the denominator here, we can write this as 2u. So we have 2u squared minus 14u. It looks like we can factor out a 2u. Okay, so if we factor out 2u, we're going to be left with u minus 7, since we pulled a 2u from here and a 2u from here. Okay, so now we need to see what we can cancel. Well, we have negative 30u squared divided by 2u. So if we just look at the numerical parts, if we have negative 30 divided by 2, that's going to give us negative 15. So we'll have a negative 15 in the numerator. And then if we have u squared divided by u, we could think of this as u times, try a different color here. We can think of this as u times u over u. So these two would cancel, and we're left with just u. So we'll have negative 15u in the numerator. And then in the denominator, we'll have now canceled out the 2 here and the u, and this exponent can go away. This becomes a negative 15. So we're left with negative 15u over u minus 7. Okay, here we have y minus 5 divided by y squared minus 4y minus 5. Okay, well, we can't do much to simplify the numerator. We're just left with y minus 5 still. But in the denominator, we want to find two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 5 and add together to give us negative 4. This is with the goal of trying to factor the denominator here. So two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 5 and add to give us negative 4. Well, we have negative 5 and 1 would do that. So negative 5 times 1 gives us negative 5, and negative 5 plus 1 gives us negative 4. So we can have y minus 5 times y plus 1. Okay, and again, if you want to double check that, you can FOIL this out and see if we get this back. Okay, but that's going to allow us to cancel y minus 5 and y minus 5. So since we canceled everything in the numerator, we just have a 1 to keep its place there. And the y minus 5 in the denominator is gone, so we're left with 1 divided by y plus 1. Okay? And then just as a quick reminder, what would be our excluded value here? Well, our excluded value would be anything that we can't have, anything that would make the denominator equal to 0. And this wasn't actually asked as part of the question, but it's good to remember. So our excluded value, okay, we're going to set y plus 1 equal to 0, and that's going to give us that y equals negative 1 is our excluded value. okay? Okay, let's look at this next one here. We have v minus 6 divided by v squared minus 36. Okay, well, again, we can't do much with the numerator here, so we're going to leave that be at least for now. But we know that v squared minus 36 is a difference of squares, and if we remember our difference of squares, if we have a squared minus b squared, this is the same thing as a plus b times a minus b. Well, the square root of v squared is just v, so here a is going to be equal to v. And the square root of 36 is 6, so we can say that b is equal to 6, and we can write this as v plus 6 times v minus 6. And then again here, we have v minus 6 and v minus 6 are going to cancel. So we have 1 divided by v plus 6. Okay, and I actually want to go back and make a correction on something here. One thing I forgot to mention here, we actually have an additional excluded value for our previous problem here. Okay, remember, I made a mistake here. I was looking at 1 over y plus 1. If we actually want to look at the excluded value for this previous problem here, we want to consider both of these values here. Okay, so anything that would make this equal to 0, we also have to consider y minus 5. So we would also have to set y minus 5 equal to 0, and that's going to give us that y equals positive 5 is also an excluded value. So let's find the excluded values here too. Our excluded values. We have to look at v plus 6 and v minus 6. So v plus 6 is equal to 0. That's going to give us that v equals negative 6. And v minus 6 equal to 0 is going to give us v equals positive 6. So these are both excluded values. And again, we want to note this because it would be very tempting, as a mistake that I just made in the previous example. It's a very easy mistake to make, would be to just consider, just to consider this particular function here as your excluded values. But if you're asked to find the excluded values, you really want to consider it from this function here, okay? So we need to consider anything that's going to make v squared minus 36 equal to 0. So our two excluded values are going to be v equals minus 6 and v equals 6. Okay? So here we have x squared minus 6x, x squared plus 6x minus 16. And in the denominator, we have 2x squared minus 12x plus 16. Okay? So let's go ahead and see if we can factor both the numerator and the denominator. So the numerator shouldn't be too bad. We need two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 16. Okay? And then we need, but also add together to give us 6. So what would do that for us should be 8 and negative 2. Okay? So if we multiply 8 times negative 2, we get negative 16. And 8 plus negative 2 should give us 6. So we can rewrite the numerator as x plus 8 times x minus 2. Okay? And the denominator, the first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to go ahead and see if we can factor anything out first. So if we factor out a 2, we should be able to turn this into a quadratic expression with a leading coefficient of 1 that we have to factor. So we can rewrite this as 2 times x squared. If we pull a 2 out of negative 12x, we'll get minus 6x. And if we pull a 2 out of the 16, we'll get plus 8. Okay, so now we can rewrite the denominator if we want to try to factor the denominator, we want to find two numbers that multiply together to give us 8 and add to give us negative 6. Okay, I'm thinking negative 4 and negative 2. If you multiply negative 4 times negative 2, you'll get positive 8. And negative 4 plus negative 2 gives you negative 6. So we can actually write the denominator here as 2 times x minus 4 times x minus 2. And the numerator is going to be x plus 8 times x minus 2. Okay, so the x minus 2's will cancel, and we're going to be left with x plus 8 over 2 times x minus 4. And that's about as much as you're going to be able to simplify this one. Okay, let's look at one more. So here in the numerator, it looks like we're fairly close to a difference of squares. So let's see if we can manipulate this a little bit to make that happen. You're not always going to be able to do this, but sometimes you can. And I think this is going to be a good example of that. So it looks like we can factor out a 3 in the numerator here. So if we factor out a 3, we're going to have x squared minus 27 divided by 3. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So we're left with 3 times x squared minus 9. And then in the denominator, we want to find two numbers that multiply together to give us 6 and add to give us 5. Okay, so I'm thinking 3 and 2 here. So we can write this as x plus 3 times x plus 2. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, but in the numerator here, we have a difference of squares. So remember, as stated before, if we have a squared minus b squared, this is a plus b times a minus b. So this becomes 3 times x plus 3 times x minus 3. And this is because in this case, we take the square root of x, that's going to give us a is equal to x, and the square root of 9 is b is equal to 3. So we can write this as 3 times x plus 3 times x minus 3. And then we have x plus 3 times x plus 2 in the denominator. And we can go ahead and cancel the x plus 3's here. So that's going to give us 3 times x minus 3 over x plus 2. And that's about as much as you're going to be able to simplify it.